Clause 3 shall be able to comprehend and appreciate the claims to which he ought to give effect. Another aspect of NPD intertwined with cognitive deficiencies and failed reality tests is a narcissist's lack of full-fledged empathy, or, per the cliche, inability to put himself in someone else's shoes and understand their needs, wants, and feelings, especially if those differ from his own. In Kantian terms, narcissists treat others as a means to an end, not as ends in their own right. This is one of the major presenting traits as described in the DSM-4 and 5, an everyday metaphor for a narcissist's lack of empathy is he views others as life-sized cardboard cutouts, like those at mall novelty shops. Perhaps it should be the other way around. Narcissists are two-dimensional with no feelings or ability to comprehend or appreciate the needs of others. As before, hard to pin down. As I mentioned before, lack of empathy can also be seen as a kind of mind blindness, where there is possibly not even an awareness of something missing in the input of a sensory awareness. My father knew my financially and physically precarious future, but in his mind blindness, he might not have understood how different my later years would be affected by both my bad luck with my career and health, or affected by his choices regarding me. Thus, either because of his lack of empathy, he was unable to comprehend and appreciate his only child's claim, and I believe my claims to be more unambiguous than others, or he did comprehend and he knew the effects of what he was doing were sadistic, abusive, and evil, with help from an unwitting, uninformed legal system, in which case Cockburn's next points. Clause 4, and with a view to the latter object, that no disorder of the mind shall poison his affections. Interesting that in 1870, Justice Cockburn used the word disorder. To grasp fully how pervasively NPD affects thinking and feeling, I invite viewers to watch some of Vaknin's other videos, such as Abuse by Proxy, Idealized, Devalued, Dumped, Discarded, and Money, Narcissist License to Abuse. Specifically, narcissists deflect attention from themselves and their destructive, sadistic, exploitative, and abusive behaviors. To do this, they use scapegoats, and the projection of negative sentiments inherent in scapegoating tacitly and implicitly involve poisoned affections, even for one's own flesh and blood. For instance, no one is surprised anymore when a parent exaggerates or lies about a child's accomplishments. Most people, however, probably deem it too ugly to be true that some parents deliberately and actively go on smear campaigns to hurt or harm their own children, perhaps even going so far as to discard a son or daughter for knowing the true nature of that parent. For independent description, I refer viewers to videos by Narcissism Survivor, especially his Narcissism Very Dangerous. Side note, though not parent-child relationships, in 2017, we saw many examples of narcissistic smear and discard. Mika and Joe, Jeff Sessions, the judiciary and intelligence communities. The first three were initially close allies, but when they challenged the truth of a narcissist's shaky narrative, they were thrown under the bus. It appears there is abundant explanation and evidence of how narcissistic personality disorder poisons affections. Detailing all of my late father's affections poisoned by NPD would take up too much time. I have a detailed essay that I will share with anyone who asks. Here I give 3 short examples. 1. Since in my father's universe, no one ever worked harder than he did, he had to twist the facts of my work history to my face and behind my back to others. He told me several times that I never worked hard a day in my life, even after I had a job pushing twice my own weight in soft drinks around on a delivery cart up to 10 hours a day. He also lied to other family members saying I never keep a job, which was a real kick in the gut because he knew some of my community college teaching jobs didn't keep me. Part-time temporary instructors are the disposable seasonal help of academia. One whiny, self-entitled student that has no contract and no work next year. 2. My father lied about my marriage and family in my adopted home overseas to get pity from his unknowing listeners. Though he never met my wife and refused to come to my wedding, he claimed he tried to stop my getting married. He lied about my not taking responsibility for my own child, not keeping a job, again to get pity from people he told this lie to, people who never heard facts from me. He was actually talking about his own absent father, my grandfather, during the Great Depression and World War II. But here, dear old dad got caught changing his story by later intimating in an email to another family member that my wife should abort my mother's grandchild and namesake. Like most grandmothers-to-be, my mother would have hauled off and slapped him. I never found out his reasoning. He might have been playing on his listeners' prejudices because my daughter would be mixed race. Or maybe because she would be the product of a non-Christian marriage and thus illegitimate in his eyes, she should be aborted. Whatever the reason, if a man wanting his own grandchild aborted isn't poison affections, I don't know what is. Stay tuned. 3. Another lie of another sort. My father liked to warn people about my temper. I haven't described everything he did yet, but I firmly believe that knowing the facts and knowing the things he did, most people would say my anger is completely justifiable. Stay tuned for more about that. But the lie this time is he made his listeners believe he never got angry or did things out of anger, hate, or rage. Here, I'd like to quote a website called narcissistchildblogspot.com. Quote, when someone says rage, we tend to think of someone screaming and yelling and waving their arms and being loud and angry. We are probably also familiar with the quiet rage, the seething but controlled anger that manifests as clenched fists and jaws, giving the fear that the person could burst into some kind of physical fury at any moment. But with narcissists, there can be yet another kind of rage, the silent, subterranean rage that simmers, often for years, before being released, and the release can be in a long-planned and carefully executed manner. End quote. Wait for it. Today, 5 years after his death, people who claim to have known my father would probably say he never got angry and never did harmful things to anyone, even to his own flesh and blood. They probably would not believe he did things that will seriously harm his own flesh and blood due to his poisoned affections. Let me tell how their perception of him as a humble, pious, good man is false, in addition to his wanting his late, beloved wife's namesake aborted. After writing this segment, I found a video by Ross Rosenberg entitled Covert Narcissists, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. While Rosenberg does not use the term scapegoat, the idea is still there as he describes what I see as poisoned affections, and how these arise in a narcissist. Quote, if you confront the covert narcissist about their narcissism, about their facade, about their duplicity, they will get really angry. I promise you that. If you out them, if you uncover their true narcissistic tendencies, you are likely to be at risk, personally, emotionally, financially. They will do anything they can to keep where they are professionally, personally, and financially, even if it's at the expense of a child and spouse. So be warned that sometimes people who are kind and giving, altruistic, may be faking it. The covert narcissist will get mad and angry, but because they are adept at hiding their true selves, they will come up with a plan on how to hurt you, how to defend themselves, how to take away your credibility. End quote.